Starborn Café by Miss Yuki 1990. Chapter 5. Secrets Revealed. Fen sighed as he finished cleaning up the cafe. A small smile tugged on his lips as he took a seat by the fireplace and looked at the dancing flames. "You have time to relax a bit," Erd whispered to him, and he felt her hands settle on his shoulders. "I'm not tired," he said. Erd giggled and a warm wind danced through his, for once not braided, hair. Today he pulled it into a high ponytail, tying the end of the long tail with another band to stop the velvety tresses from getting in his way. "I know you're not tired, sweetness. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use your free time to rest." Ven laughed dryly when Erd wrapped her arms around his shoulders and leaned her cheek against his. "I know." Erd sighed, and Ven leaned his head back a little. "What are you thinking about?" "How long do you think it will take Mr. Stark to figure out who I am?" Erd snorted, and a warm shiver ran down Ven's back. "Considering his past, I'd say any day now. If you want a correct date, you should ask Skald." Erd asked, sounding a bit displeased, making Ven huff at the corners of his lips tilted up in dry amusement. "You know she doesn't like me all that much." Erd snorted, and Ven's clothes and hair ruffled under a gust of wind. "No wonder she doesn't like you. You are too unpredictable for her, my dear Breeze. She is sometimes such a child." Ven shrugged his shoulders and looked up at the ceiling. "There will come a moment when she will have to get used to that." Erd giggled and kissed his temple. "Verdandi, on the other hand, adores you. I think she actually mourned when you found out you carried his mark since little after you were born." A shadow of quiet suffering darkened Ven's eyes, and he licked dry lips as he gazed into the burning fire, seeing something visible only to those emerald orbs. "Worry not, sweetness," Erd comforted lovingly. "He'll come back soon. Midgard needs him, and he swore he would protect it." "I almost wish I hadn't seen him then," Ven whispered to the empty silence of the cafe, hands fisting on his thighs. "At least my heart would still know peace." Erd sighed and hugged him tighter. "Harvan, it's been years, my dear Erd." He spoke and stood up, coming to stand in front of the fireplace, and he crossed lean arms over a lightly defined chest, shoulders hunching from the smallest of bits. "Years since I simply let go. Years since I used my magic freely." He raised his right hand and fisted it loosely, sparks of green electricity snapping around it before he clenched his fist tightly, extinguishing the spark before it had time to grow. "I can feel it. I can feel it gathering just under my skin. Soon enough I won't be able to control it anymore. You know it as well as I do." Erd wrapped one arm around his shoulders, flattening her front with his back, and covered his fist with her right hand. The air filled with something heavy, something powerful and thrilling, and all of a sudden the see-through shape of a curvaceous woman with endlessly long hair appeared behind Ven, silvery orbs staring at the fire burning in front of them. "I'm here for you, sweetness. I'll always be here for you." Erd comforted her ward, and Harvan's lips tilted up into a semblance of a smile, sadness still prominent in the beautiful lines of his face. "I know," he whispered, slipping his right hand from her gentle hold before he took her hand in his and brought it to his lips, laying a gentle kiss upon fingers made out of mist and magic. "I know." "Well, fuck!" Bruce straightened in his seat and looked at Tony with a raised eyebrow. In the 2 years he actively worked with Tony Stark, he could count only a handful of times the man actually cursed. "What is it?" He stood up and took a look at what had Tony cursing, frowning when he found the image of a younger Harvan with short-cut hair on the screen of the main computer. Were it not for those ethereal emerald eyes, Bruce would have had trouble recognizing the mysterious bartender. "Is that... I finally cracked the mystery," Tony muttered, eyes following the quickly appearing lines on Harvan's file. "What mystery?" Both turned to look at the doorway, finding Steve standing there with arms crossed over his chest. "Calling Clint and Tasha," Tony said and glanced at the screen again. "You have to hear this." 10 minutes later, the Avengers were sitting in the lab. Seeing that everyone had settled into their seats, Tony activated the holoscreen and crossed his arms over his chest. "Jarvis, pull out the data we found on Harvan Sigurdsson." "Right away," Jarvis answered, and Harvan's image appeared with a small, basic data list to the left of the image. Not a moment later, everyone but Tony gaped. 1980? Steve wondered, looking at the screen as though he couldn't quite grasp the data. "He's 43 years old?" Steve looked at the others, trying to see if they were just as confused about this as he was. Yep, he's old, Tony drawled, and Bruce rolled his eyes. Tony, you're 37, he teased his best friend, and Iron Man raised an eyebrow at him. And I have yet to reach my peak, Tony murmured, and Bruce shook his head. Where did you find this information? Natasha asked and moved closer to the holoscreen. Since I couldn't find anything in the American database, I hacked into the Interpol, Tony blurted out, evoking a round of sighs and huffs from his friends. You can imagine my surprise when I found him in a top-secret file that contained a list of people classified as R.E.D. I heard of that, Clint jumped in. R.E.D. stands for Retired Extremely Dangerous. But still, that makes no sense. He frowned thoughtfully and looked at Tony with pursed lips. What does a former special agent have to do in a bar? I haven't even started yet, Tony warned his teammates. Jarvis, run on the basic stats on Harry James Potter. Everyone frowned at that, and Tony just shook his head, quietly telling them to wait. Harry James Potter. Born on July 31st to Lily and James Potter. Place of origin, England, Surrey. Parents died on October 31st, 1981. Cause of death unknown. Guardians, Petunia and Vernon Dursley. Until his 10th year, Mr. Potter attended St. Gregory's Primary School and then vanished off the charts. He appeared in 2008 as a special ops agent working directly for the Queen's National Guard. Retired since 2015. Awfully young for a special op, Steve muttered and frowned. On the other hand, awfully young to be retired as well, he added as a second thought before looking at Tony. Still, what does Mr. Potter have to do with Mr. Sigurdsson? Tony snorted. Jarvis, open the top secret files on Harry James Potter. Forgo the basic stats. Report since 1990. Affirmative. Jarvis droned, and the screen shut down only to start to back up, showing a picture of a 17-year-old Hadavan dressed in tight black clothes. He stood at attention, and on the left shoulder of his black uniform was a strange symbol. It was a U inside a circle with two sticks crossing behind it. His hair was short and expression serious. There was darkness in his eyes they thought they would never see in those emerald depths. Harvey James Potter, Jarvis continued. Most used aliases. The Boy Who Lived, Raven, Thunder, Griffin, Knight, Shadow, Kage, Kaze, Blitz, and Phoenix. At age 11, he was accepted in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Wait a second, Natasha interrupted, glancing at the others in confusion. Witchcraft? Wizardry? Correct, Tony stated, popping his lips and clasping his hands behind his back. Edinburgh Site is a society of witches and wizards. I broke into our government's top-secret files and the top-secret files of England, the European Union, China, Japan, Australia, and they all have the same data. Only top people in the ruling system have this knowledge, and this knowledge is granted only to those who give an oath to keep it secret. Considering the amount of proof, even if it is some sort of advanced technology society, I am prone to believe it ought to be true. Tony shot everyone a pointed glance before looking at the holoscreen. Jarvis, continue. Mr. Potter stopped his schooling at the age of 17 to lead an army against one of the worst dark wizards in the history of the world, the same man who killed his parents. He never finished his official schooling. At the age of 18, he was accepted into the Wizarding World's police department as agent in charge of a team dedicated to locating and imprisoning the remaining followers of the Dark Lord. Due to his outstanding performance, after 3 years in the Aura Force and after finishing his mission, Mr. Potter was assigned to the Unspeakable Force and became one of the Knights of the Queen's Guard. Until 2015, he cooperated with MI6 and several other secret services throughout the world under different code names. In 2015, for unknown reasons, he handed in his resignation and retired. His file was placed in the R.E.D. department, and he's been under close watch of MI6, the Unspeakable Force, CIA, FBI, and several others due to his status as one, if not the, most dangerous man on Earth. In 2017, he emerged again in Japan under the alias Hadavan Sigurdsson, and kept that alias to this day. Even though he is no longer under constant watch, he is obligated to hand in a yearly report to the London Ministry of Magic. Well, spank me and call me Charlie, Bruce muttered, and everyone looked at him wide-eyed. I guess that explains a few things. Jarvis, is there anything else in his file we should know? Like, how come he was accepted as a special agent when he didn't even finish his schooling? His fiancée was killed in the Battle of Hogwarts. Now that shocked those who weren't too taken aback before. His file states that he was the only one fully willing and capable to lead the group of people who were chosen for the mission. His skill in offensive and defensive magic, spell-waving,
tracking, assault techniques, and remarkable leadership skills earned him a place among the Auras, the magical police department. His knowledge about our world only helped him. Through voting of the Parliament and the Wizardgamot, he was named Master of Defense against the Dark Arts after proving himself in a duel against the top 4 members of the Aura Force. His file states that his full power was never measured because his mentor in the Aura Force stated, "I fear what would happen if his full power was unleashed. We can consider it a blessing that he refuses to use his full power, and should continue to do so, since I would place my life and magic on the line in an oath that Harry would never use his full power in fear of losing control." "I guess he's somewhat similar to you, Bruce," Steve commented quietly, and Bruce nodded with a small understanding smile.
"I guess he found his own balance," Bruce muttered, shifting his weight as he looked at the hollow image of Hardivan.
"Is there more?" Clint asked. "He holds the title of Lord of the Noble House of Potter, Lord of the Noble and Ancient House of Black, Honorary Member of the Noble House of Weasley, Lord Gryffindor, Lord Slytherin, and Lord Peverell. He has a godson named Teddy Lupin, who is a teacher at Hogwarts." For a few moments, silence reigned among the Avengers.
"Wow," Steve was the first to speak. "I'd say that's a lot to take in." "I'd have to agree with you, Stars and Stripes," Tony murmured and shut down the holoscreen. "The only question now is what should be done about this," he stated and turned to face the others.
"He's retired. I think there's nothing we can do about it," Bruce said.
"I agree," Natasha threw in her own opinion. "There is this saying about not touching a sleeping lion. If there's even half of truth in this, I wouldn't want to make an enemy out of him."
"I second that," Clint said, and Steve nodded. "So we just let it be?" Tony asked.
"Yes." Steve shrugged to Tony's more than obvious displeasure if the petulant pat on his lips was anything to go by.
"Besides,"
everyone looked at Bruce when he spoke up,
"I have a feeling that if there ever comes a reason for him to take up arms again, so to say, I don't think he would hesitate to do so."
"So we have an Avenger on reserve. Good to know that,"
Tony muttered, and his colleagues rolled their eyes at him.
"Yes, Tony," Bruce drawled in obvious amusement and shook his head. "I think it's safe to say that we have an Avenger on reserve."
"An old comrade is coming to visit you."
Ben raised an eyebrow when Erd whispered in his ear. The cafe was empty, and he was sitting in a chair beside the fireplace reading a book. He closed it and put it on the tea table beside his cup of tea.
"Who is it?"
"You'll see in a moment,"
Erd said, and Hardivan frowned, hearing the quiet undertone of wariness in Erd's voice. Just as Ven stood up, the door opened, and in walked a tall, dark-skinned man with an eye patch over his left eye. Ven's eyebrows met the line of his hair. My, he muttered in a drawl, crossing lean arms over his chest. "Nick Fury." The newcomer closed the door, took a step closer, straightened, and clasped his hands behind his back. Hardivan hummed, and his head tilted back. "I haven't seen you in a while."